Hello, today I'm going to talk about my top 10 Gnostic TV episodes. These are all standalone episodes. They're not really part of any continuing narrative. A few of them are part of a larger whole, but the story here is self-contained. I'm not including any episodes of The Prisoner on here, but I am going to do an entire video on that series probably in the next few months. You can also check out my Black Mirror video on the USS Callister episode, which is a lot about the Gnostic prison. Before I get started, I have one honorable mention. Word Processor of the Gods from Tales from the Darkside, Season 1, Episode 8. A man discovers a word processor that can rewrite reality. He starts deleting problems like files. I really liked this, but it didn't quite fit the list. It kind of did, but kind of didn't. I think the others fit it better, so I included those. However, if you know who Bruce Davison is, he's from the 2 original X-Men films. He's a great actor, and he really nails this role. It was based off of a Stephen King short story, and I don't know, it's a good episode. You should check it out. It kind of fits this, but not exactly. If you don't know anything about Gnosticism, you can check out my Gnostic playlist, and let's get started. At number 10, we have Zima Blue from Love, Death, and Robots from 2019. Season 1, Episode 14. The runtime is only 10 minutes and is directed by Robert Valley. The voice cast includes Kevin Michael Richardson and Zita Hanrat. Zima Blue follows a legendary artist whose work evolves from traditional painting into vast, abstract cosmic murals beyond human understanding. What begins as a story about art becomes a meditation on identity, memory, and the cost of surpassing one's origins. This is based on a short story by Alistair Reynolds, and I would say it's heavily influenced by Ian Flux. By the way, I am going to do an Ian Flux video at some point on the whole series. We'll see when. So the thing with this is his identity, his fame, and his form are all artificial layers. They're distractions from his essence. There's this blue rectangle that he obsesses over. I see this symbol as kind of a fragment of heaven or a representation of the Platonic forms. But in this case, his awakening comes through personal self-discovery. But the world that Zima operates within, world of fame, art critics, technology, all of this is a false reality. But he becomes the architect of his own liberation. And I think what this story is the return. It's about going back to the beginning, the alpha and omega, how we start out and how we end up. I actually found this a bit sad. The animation's great though. It's got a lot of style. It's short, so it's kind of in and out very quickly, but I recommend it. At number 9, we have Cigarette Burns from the Masters of Horror series, 2005, Season 1, Episode 8, directed by John Carpenter, starring Norman Reedus and Udo Kier. A rare film print, rumored to cause madness, becomes the obsession of a struggling film historian. As he tracks it down, reality fractures and unseen forces twist perception, memory, and identity. So if you don't know, the term cigarette burns refers to the cue marks used by projectionists to signal the end of a film reel. These marks appear in the last seconds of each reel and are used to alert the projectionist that a changeover to the next reel is imminent. In terms of story, it's a symbol of transition and impermanence. This contains clear echoes of The King in Yellow, a hidden knowledge that obsesses and destroys. The film itself in the story is a Gnostic revelation. It's a divine power that shatters the material veil. Udo Kier plays a demiurgic collector who's trying to get this film back. So you could kind of see it as that little spark, divine spark, and him as the demiurge is trying to get this back. He had it, but he lost it. Udo Kier is a legend. If you don't know that name, you should immediately check out Andy Warhol's Dracula and Frankenstein. They're not actually directed by Andy Warhol, they're directed by Paul Morrissey, but those 2 films are legendary in my book. He was also in Blade and Suspiria and many, many other great films. Reedus plays the film historian, but he's more of an occult investigator, and he enters this seedy underworld of the film industry. Greg Nicotero from Walking Dead fame does the creature effects. If you're a horror fan, there's a really nice Dario Argento Easter egg. I'm not going to say what it is, but when it comes on screen, you will know. Back in the day, I used to be a film projectionist, so this story really resonated with me. It has all of the hallmarks of a great Lovecraftian tale. The cursed item, forbidden knowledge, Pandora's box, the compulsion to experience it no matter what the cost. And maybe that's one thing to say about Gnostic texts, is that they are kind of damning in a way. Once you read them, you can't go back. If you love John Carpenter, you're going to love this. It's very dark, very bleak, nihilistic. You know, I would say probably post They Live, his films were kind of hit and miss. But I would say this is one of the scariest of his later day works. At number 8, we have White Bear from Black Mirror, 2013, Season 2, Episode 2. It's directed by Carl Tibbets, starring Lenora Critchlow and Michael Smiley. A woman wakes with no memory in a curated dystopia where everyone watches her suffer as entertainment. Why is she in this barless prison? So this really shows the kind of manufactured reality. It also contains the Gnostic amnesiac approach, the trope of the protagonist trying to recover their memories. But this is about spectatorship as control, the soul on trial, again and again and again, the paying for our sins. It's shot like a horror film, but it ends with this kind of metaphysical twist that I did not expect. The protagonist is kind of going through this hell of sorts. There's something eerie about the voyeuristic emptiness here. When I was about 12 or 13, I saw Night of the Living Dead for the first time. And there's something about the scene when they're in the cemetery and he's like, you know, they're coming to get you, Barbara. There's something about the emptiness of the cemetery that to me was terrifying. And that's the same feeling I got when I was watching this. In the early parts of the story, these people just kind of appear and they're just terrifying for that same reason. And I would say this is definitely a public service warning against smartphone cameras. It's pretty crazy how this is utilized in here, but yeah, it's just crazy. Michael Smiley, known for Kill List and A Field in England, is very good in here. He's not in it a lot, but when he showed up, I was like, oh, I know that guy. Another influence on this story, I think, was The Purge. Just this idea that entertainment can be deadly. I guess you could say The Running Man as well. Anyway, it's a really good story. At number 7, we have The Sentence from the Outer Limits reboot from 1996, Season 2, Episode 22, directed by Joseph Scanlon, starring David Hyde Pierce. A doctor in a dystopian future of overcrowded prisons invents a virtual reality punishment device that compresses life sentences into mere minutes. And this is about imprisonment in the illusion, the soul trapped in a nested false world. And I would say this has one of the bleakest endings in that kind of 90s sci-fi boom. Star Trek The Next Generation, all those shows that came out around that time. This is very bleak. And it's much better than I thought it would be. When it first came on, I was like, I don't know. And then I got really into it. There are a lot of interesting ideas about guilt and innocence in here. If you don't know, David Hyde Pierce was on Frasier. He played Niles. He's Frasier's neurotic brother, but he gets to flex his dramatic chops here. Because of the nature of the story, he has to tap into all these different emotions. On Frasier, he was kind of a one-trick pony. It was all like these neurotic one-liners, rapid-fire delivery. But this is about the idea of crime and punishment, penance for your sins, retribution, suffering, and the karmic cycle. If you love the X-Files or Star Trek TNG, you're going to love this. It's from the same era. At number 6, we have Shadowplay from the original Twilight Zone, 1961, Season 2, Episode 26, directed by John Brom, starring Dennis Weaver. A man insists he's dreaming the entire courtroom and death row, and they will all die when he does. No one believes him until they do. This is about a solipsistic cosmology, the philosophical idea that only one's own mind is certain to exist. Everything else, places, people, events, might be illusions, projections, or simulations of the consciousness. Weaver plays the character Adam, which I think is a nice Easter egg. He sells the viewpoint with this kind of wild-eyed certainty. Is he telling the truth? Has he gone mad? What if it's possible? He screams out, "You can't make me die again." It's like something worse than this world has to offer. It's a kind of curse. It reminded me a little bit of Groundhog's Day, but maybe this is a dream. Maybe all of our realities are like that. Everyone that is around us is just there to teach us this lesson or to keep us bound to our own point of view. One thing I noticed that I thought was pretty clever is at one point he mentions that there are 78 steps to the electric chair. I mean, this is definitely a magic number. There are 78 tarot cards. 7 represent the heavens or the Archons. 8 often symbolizes new beginnings or eternal cycles. I just thought this was very clever. You know, his performance is great, but the second guessing of the other characters, that is what really sells this. Wondering if what he says is true or not. As it gets closer to D-Day, the people get more and more manic because they're just not sure. At number 5, we have Frame of Mind from Star Trek The Next Generation, 1993, Season 6, Episode 21, directed by James L. Conway. And this one is starring Jonathan Frakes. Riker is performing in a play about madness, but is he in the play, in a prison, or both? His identity unravels layer by layer. This one is about a prison of the mind, perception as a cage, identity as a false construct, and I think Frakes gives a powerhouse performance here. It may be one of his best performances in all of TNG, and this is his show. The others are in it, but it is all about him. It's directed like an anxiety dream, but it's clear that Brandon Braga, the writer, was influenced by Philip K. Dick. It is definitely clear here. And the question is, who am I? There is this Archon jailer. He is kind of Riker's nemesis in this. There are shadows of MK Ultra, Project Bluebird, the Manchurian Candidate. It does a good job of layering the illusion with confusion. As a viewer, you just don't really know what's going on until the last moment. It kind of jumps back and forth between these two viewpoints as Riker unravels. I'm a big TNG fan, but I think this is definitely one of the better episodes. At number 4, we have Return of the Archons from the original Star Trek 1967, Season 1, Episode 21, directed by Joseph Pevney, starring William Shatner, Leonard Nimoy, and DeForest Kelley. The Enterprise crew encounters a civilization in thrall to Landru, a computer god enforcing peace through control and law. So Landru is the demiurge, the false god controlling thought and behavior. The citizens of the planet are the Hylix. They live in an artificial harmony, disconnected from their true identities. They say things throughout the episode like, "You are not of the body," referring to people that are not Hylix. "You will be absorbed." There is this Red Hour. It's a Dionysian chaos event, a lot like the Purge. The Archons are called the Lawgivers here. But there's also an underground that's trying to stop this, a group of Gnostic psychics. But the idea here is paradise as a honey trap. It's got this Invasion of the Body Snatchers vibe. My next Gnostic movie top 10 list is going to talk specifically about that, about the Hylix. You can watch out for that. That should be out maybe in the next month or two. But in true Kirk fashion, he introduces the Logos, reason to break the illusion, which is kind of funny because you'd think it would be Spock, but it's actually Kirk. There was another TOS episode that I thought about putting on here called The Apple from Season 2, Episode 5. It's kind of a take on the idea of Eden with its own demiurge figure called Val. It's good, but I thought this one was a bit better, so I put it on the list. At number 3, we have The Obsolete Man from the Twilight Zone original series, 1961, Season 2, Episode 29. Directed by Elliot Silverstein, starring Burgess Meredith. In a totalitarian state, a librarian is sentenced to death for being obsolete, but he has one final act of truth to offer his executioner. This one was written by Rod Serling himself. In it, the Archons are the state, words and faith are salvific, death is the door. This is scripted a bit like a Gnostic sermon. Romney Wordsworth is the main character, and I think his name is a nice Easter egg. Romney means wide river or broad stream in Old English, and Wordsworth was a romantic poet, and he is played by Burgess Meredith, and I think he's excellent in this. Meredith is defiant, divine, doomed, and he knows he's immortal. He doesn't care that he's going to die. He's unafraid. But he embodies individuality, intellect, and human dignity. He is the Gnostic, persecuted, enlightened, keeper of texts, heretic. Fritz Weaver is the Chancellor. He is the kind of demiurge figure. And all his little minions that are running around doing everything are all the minor Archons. This channels Kafka's The Trial. There's this great moment where Burgess Meredith has a gotcha moment, and I just found it awesome. I actually cheered at the screen when I realized what he did. It's just a great moment. And number 2, we have Adam chapters 1 to 3 by Oats Studios, 2016 to 2017. Directed by Neil Blomkamp. Humanoid machines awaken in a mechanized prison world where their pasts have been wiped. An encounter with a godlike figure reactivates buried truths. This was done on Unity Engine, which is a real-time rendering motion capture system, and it looks great. It is District 9 meets Ghost in the Shell meets Dune. There are cybernetic Archons and prisoners, but the prisoners have amnesia. It's this kind of rebellion against mechanical fate. It's a tech demo turned mythic parable. Chapter 1 is Adam, and it's the introduction to Adam's world and body. Chapter 2 is The Mirror. It's the revelation of memory and past. And Chapter 3 is called The Prophet, and expands the world and reveals factions and lore. This is transhumanism meeting techno-spirituality, a kind of cyborg mysticism, if you want to put it that way. It reminded me a little bit of Metropolis mixed with the Apocryphon of John, but there's so much potential here, there really is. I wish this got expanded into a feature. If you don't know about Oats Studios, it's this kind of testing ground that Neil Blomkamp did where he's trying to get projects made. All of the shorts are very interesting, but this series in particular I think was very well done. It's free on YouTube if you want to check it out. There is so much potential here, it could even be a series. It's just got a lot of potential. And at number 1, we have Real Life from Philip K. Dick's Electric Dreams, 2017, Season 1, Episode 5, directed by Jeffrey Rainier, starring Anna Paquin, Terrence Howard, and Sam Witwer. 2 people from radically different futures use VR devices to de-stress. Only one of their lives is real. Maybe. This is loosely based on a PKD story called Exhibit Piece. I say loosely because it's very, very, very loose. But here is a quote from the original story. "You have no soul, another concept from the golden days of the 20th century when men were free and could speak their minds." The reason I put that quote there is because I think the story is much more political, whereas the TV episode leans more into the kind of emotional or the spiritual. It basically takes the concept of Dick's story and complicates it quite a bit. It was written by Ronald D. Moore, famous for Battlestar Galactica reboot, Star Trek The Next Generation and Deep Space Nine, and Outlander. Now, like I said, it diverts from the original story, but I think in some ways it's an improvement here. It's really, really good. It's about identity and pain and how those things are kind of intertwined. It examines the push and pull between grief and what we would call a perfect life. Which one is reality? The person with the VR headset on or the dream that they're dreaming? And what if they both are going into the VR world? Then what? The episode's tension centers on uncovering what's real versus constructed. Who are you when your memories are manufactured? The dreamer dreams the dreamer who gets confused by their dream. It also shows the psychological dangers of VR. Like most Gnostic stories, the idea is escape, but what are you escaping to and from? And at what cost? And can you ever truly run from yourself? My one criticism with it is the same thing I say about most of Philip K. Dick's adaptations, is it leans too heavily into the sci-fi. I wish they would approach it more like the film Alphaville from 1965, directed by Jean-Luc Godard. Today as the future. It used real-world Paris locations instead of futuristic sets, something that Andor, the TV show, also did as well. But the problem with all of these adaptations is they tend to focus on the doodads and not the concepts. Regardless of all of this, I thought this was quite moving and powerful. And it would be especially powerful if you've ever lost someone, either through like a death or through like a breakup or something like that. But I highly recommend it. You should check it out. And that's all I got for this one. If you know any other standalone TV Gnostic episodes, you can post those below. Maybe I'll do a second one on this. I'm not sure yet. Or if you have anything to say about any of these, you can also post that below. But that's it. Take care. Have a good day. Bye-bye.